And then next is Jody Rose will start at 10:15. We'll talk about New England Venture Capital Association, Hack Diversity, the Nevies, an exciting event coming up. So in the meantime, you will hear a little bit of music. So hopefully the earphones, it's not going to be too loud. Just be careful about this, but I'm trying it. So we'll connect in a few minutes. Thank you, Jody, for being here with us. So Jody Rose is the president of New England Venture Capital Association. The reason we brought Jody today is because, we have an idea of what venture capital is. We don't always know what, is on their mind, what, are the mission, vision, ambitions. But also, we wanted to talk about an initiative, which is very interesting, called Hack Diversity. So this takes place in Boston. We have the city of Strasbourg there. We hope these stories and these missions can inspire other cities to do things that are similar. It's very important to basically think about everyone when we're doing this transition, when the technological revolution is ongoing, jobs are getting disrupted and so on. So, today, Jody Rose, thanks for being here with us. And we look forward to learning about New England Venture Capital Association, the events, the initiative, and how we can help, how can we contribute and help you in your mission. Welcome to the call.
Thank you so much for having me, Alistair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. So I want to say thank you to you and Anuvo for having me, and thank you for putting on such a well-attended and robust day. All that you're doing in the ecosystem in Strasbourg and here, we applaud you. So let me start by saying that I am not a venture capitalist. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not a historian, policy expert, or professor. As Alistair said, I lead the New England Venture Capital Association, which is an organization that acts and advocates on behalf of our 90 plus venture capital member firms across New England, and also in some instances across the world. I came to this work having worked in the tech industry for over 20 years, close to 10 of them being in the startup space. For those of you who do not know, the New England Venture Capital Association, or for short, NEVCA, has a mission of helping to foster a more collaborative, innovative, and prosperous ecosystem with a keen eye towards entrepreneurship and community. Our work is guided by 4 key pillars: building community, regional brand evangelism, policy advocacy, and inclusive workforce development. So today I'd like to center us on a singular question. How can investors look beyond investing in companies, but also investing in communities? And as we spend the next 30 or 20 minutes or so, let's all ask ourselves, why, if at all, should this matter? So I believe historical context is key. So allow me to introduce my historical self. I promise you, I will take but 3 minutes. I am a first-generation American, born in the great state of New York, to a mother and father, both from Jamaica in the West Indies. Being the daughter of immigrant parents, I quickly learned that there were 2 key things that were paramount to my success in their eyes. One, I had to go to college and get a college degree, and I had to secure a good paying job with great health benefits. I identify as a Black Jamaican woman. My career began in New York City in the cable and telecommunications industry. And 10 years later, I would find myself working in the Boston tech startup ecosystem. As I started my role at the NEVCA, 2 things were abundantly clear. One, having never worked in venture capital, I had no idea what I was doing. And 2, yet again, I was working in an industry where 99% of the time, I was the only Black woman navigating these corporate coveted spaces. My initial impression of this role was that it was my job to work on behalf of my constituents to ensure they were attracting more entrepreneurs, accessing stronger deal flow, and gaining increased national notoriety. Things drastically changed 2 months into my role when I was introduced to a venture capitalist by the name of Jeff Bousquet. Jeff forwarded me an article in Business Week that was entitled, "Why Can't Google and Silicon Valley Hire Black Coders?" This article went on to highlight the experience of a few historically Black college students from Howard University, an experience that they had while interning at Google, and essentially why they would never go back. It was at that time that Jeff said to me, Jody, this is not a Silicon Valley issue. It is pervasive in so many markets, but it's also pervasive in Boston. And I believe that we need to do something about it. Again, a few months in, I really couldn't understand why Jeff cared and why he was asking that the venture community take on this challenge. But to Jeff, it was quite simple. In board meetings with his portfolio companies, they'd all cite the challenge of not being able to find enough technologists to fill their open roles. And when pressed about what they were doing about diversity, they reminded their engaged investor, Jeff, that they just told him how challenging it was to find talent in general. That led Jeff, me, and a few others on a 6-month path to creating what is now known as Hack Diversity. Hack Diversity is a talent provider that connects top Black and Latino technologists with our community's leading companies, while also working in collaboration with each company to help them create the culture they aspire to have, a culture that works on helping them to retain talent, no matter what you look like or no matter what your background is. So you may be saying, yeah, great, this sounds good. We applaud the effort, but why should VCs care? Well, if we reflect on the strengths of this local innovation economy, consider this. We have some of the best colleges and universities in the world. We're home to the #1 research district in the entire world, ranked #1 in biotechnology, innovation, and venture capital investments, and have one of the world's leading technology sectors. This area attracts the best and brightest individuals from around the globe who are excited to not only attend our top universities, but to also build companies in this innovation community and work for leading early stage and later stage companies. Some would argue that the strength of this ecosystem is second to none. And with all these strengths and successes, we have one of the country's largest income inequality gaps, and our companies compete ferociously on talent because you know what? They still cannot fill all of their open roles. We know innovation and growth means nothing without people, because it's the workers that actually get us there. Studies have also demonstrated time and time again that without a diverse workforce, companies will be slower to innovate and less successful than companies with more diverse teams. So as Jeff and I were on our listening tour, we realized that most, if not all, companies had a very similar talent recruitment process. Double down on top local universities to ensure they attract the best talent, which makes complete sense. I would do the same thing if I was building a company here. But they had one glaring flaw. These companies were overlooking a huge pool of talent that had the ability, the grit, and the aptitude, but didn't have the right family member, last name, country of origin, degree, or network, and almost always didn't have enough money to position themselves for opportunities that would allow them in these coveted spaces while also creating generational wealth. So 5 years later, how's Hack Diversity doing? Well, let me tell you. We tap into the underestimated, overlooked talent sources like coding tech boot camps, community colleges, and in some instances, what some would consider tier 2 universities. We recruit top software developers, data analysts, and IT professionals. We work alongside each and every one of our host companies to ensure that they are not just leveraging Hack for our talent, but that they are working alongside us and the other host companies to hack their culture. Our company approach is data-driven and includes aggressive feedback to employers and participating fellows. And that aggressive feedback doesn't just go one way, we also ask for it in return. Today, I'm happy to say, proud to say, that we're gearing up for our 5th cycle. And at the end of 2021, we will have served close to 300 talented Black and Latinx technologists at over 35 of Boston's most innovative companies, the likes of which include Vertex, Wayfair, Lola, HubSpot, Rapid7, Tango Therapeutics, BitSight, Drift, Athena Health, Boston Dynamics, Salsify, and the list goes on. So back to my original question. Should investors be focusing on investing in communities, and why? Through our program, we've been able to fill close to 200 jobs, a large percentage of which are at venture-backed companies. We've increased earnings of our fellows' earning capacity on average by $65,000, with a large percentage of our fellows making well into the six figures, more than they've ever made in their lives. We're tapping into the next generation of diverse leaders and entrepreneurs and are putting up a scaffolding needed to help interested Hack Diversity alums begin to learn how to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. We are changing the face of innovation, one person at a time. So with more venture capitalists focused on community, consider this. Consider a world where the US tech force is no longer comprised of less than 6% of Blacks and Latinos, but more like 30, 40, or 50%. Consider a world where our fellows, or Blacks and Latinos and women, live in a city that has the right transportation infrastructure that now allows them to get to their new jobs in under 1 hour, or where they no longer have to consider opportunities based on the limitations of said transportation system. Consider a world where women receive more than 10% of venture funding, and where Black women receive more than 0.25% of venture dollars. Consider a world where you've now tapped into your local underestimated population who are ready, willing, and able to take on some of the world's and environment's leading challenges, and who are ready to change the world. That's the world I want to live in someday. That's the world I and the team at the NEVCA are working so hard to help create. And so I also believe that that's the world that we all want to live in today. Before I turn this over to questions, I do want to say that I want to invite everyone on this call to please join us on December 1st for the 8th NEVI Awards. For those of you who are not familiar with the work that we do, like I say, we do brand evangelism. And part of that means that we want to highlight all of the successes that are coming out of this region from the many, many entrepreneurs and also venture capitalists that help to fund that work. And so in our 8th year, what the NEVI Awards does is look back at the year and really highlights some of those outliers and those entrepreneurs that have really made a huge difference and impact in our ecosystem. So please join us on December 1st. It will be virtual because we all know that 2020 has greatly impacted how we meet up and how we do things, but we would love to have you there. I promise it will be fun and hope to see you there. So Alastair, Nouveau, and to everybody on this call, please, I would love to open it up to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you. So the link for the NEVI Awards have been sent into the chat. So feel free to register. This is a great event every year. It's the best event in Boston for venture capital by far. So very much recommended. So thank you, Jody. This was really great. So any questions from the audience? I have a few questions on my end. So basically, is there any plans of internationalizing Hack Diversity? So here's an idea. We have a similar problem in Strasbourg, France, of entrepreneurs and issues in diversity, not being represented and so on. So could we think or imagine of any Hack Diversity, international, maybe Hack Boston, Strasbourg, or to inspire further? And could that be a fit, or is that something you guys think of already?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. When we launched Hack Diversity, the role and goal was always that this was going to go beyond Boston, that we would develop a national and even a global model for how ecosystems can really leverage, all of the resources that they have in their backyard and bridge those gaps and bring that together so companies can go, be faster to market and faster to innovate. We right now have built pretty strong playbook and team that could literally go into an ecosystem and say, here's how you do it. Here's what you would need in years 1, 2, 3, and in the out years. And so I would love to talk to you or anyone interested about how we could potentially partner or help to set up the infrastructure needed for you to potentially build this in Strasbourg.
Excellent, because this is for us really true innovation, and it's so important. So sitting with entrepreneurs close to venture capital, clearly there's no lack of money, of cash. There's no lack of clubs, and basically, these types of, bridge, if you will, take people from to the next opportunity. So this is really fantastic and very much needed in every city. We're all one, we're united. So if someone suffers, we all suffers at the end of the day. So it's really important.
Exactly right.
Redesign of this society and this future in the aftermath. I think it's really a good initiative. So congratulations for this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We definitely believe that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that this is a team sport, and we need all players on the team to make sure that we all get there faster.
Exactly. And then one thing that was also very intriguing about this approach is many people think venture capital is just about ROI. It is, don't get me wrong, but it's also about about adding value, creating tomorrow, the future, getting involved.
That's exactly right.
And that's where New England Venture Capital Association is extraordinary. Very, very good to have you and be a member of this association for now. I think two years.
Yeah, and we are so grateful to have you as a member, and also to bring us into these international conversations. So you continue to pull us in, Alistair. Let us know how we can be helpful, and we'll do the same. And I will say, when you look at the VCs that are super engaged, yeah, they're looking to us to help them from a policy perspective and advocate on their behalf. But when you look at initiatives around how we're trying to get more women in venture, more women funded, or more Black and Latinx people funded into these jobs, so many of our VCs are passionate about this work, including yourself. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. And I do notice some nice bottle of wines behind you. So
yes, hopefully when we can see you in person, I can bring a bottle and we can celebrate together.
Excellent. So any questions from the audience? So we have a couple of questions here. So what's VC role when it comes to innovating and on how equity works for employees and business? So Eric Rex. Did you want, let's open the mic. Did you get the question, Jody? Otherwise, we'll just open the mic real quick.
Yeah, maybe you can open the mic. Okay. That'd be great.
Nikki, can you unmute Eric rapidly and so he can ask the question?
Hold on one second. You said Eric? Hold on.
From Atlanta. So we have Lyon, Strasbourg, Atlanta. We have people from Dubai on the call, also Strasbourg. This is international. This is great. More than 200 people have registered. We'll watch the replay, and it's really exciting to be here.
Okay, Eric has been unmuted. Eric Rex.
Hi. Eric. I'm just curious about your thoughts on how venture capital can innovate, equity for young employees who are thinking of starting or joining a tech company. And do you see that? That's my first question. And then my second question is, do you see the clean energy or energy tech industry maybe thinking about equity different for its employees? Given that there's, pretty large companies, already public companies where you can just, buy equity and buy stock into the company. And there are other sort of more interesting structures like cooperatives in rural areas that, could provide equity to different stakeholders. So it's kind of a two-part question, but I'm more interested, I guess, in the first, and just like, what's the role of VC in innovating on equity for people who want to join or create companies?
Yeah, so I would say when you think about the role of VC for people that want to join companies, I think VC has figured out pretty quickly that in order to inspire and incentivize employees in these early stage companies, that equity is a key component of what those compensation packages should look like, right? So I think from an early stage perspective, VCs do a good job of really pushing their teams to think about how they're going to distribute equity across organizations from, the person on the lowest rung, if you will. So from receptionist all the way up to CEO. I do think that we're now in a time where, based on what's been happening in 2020, VCs and also public equity firms and large institutions are thinking about how do we make equity more accessible? How do we make equity more accessible to people that want to start companies but don't have the network or the letters behind their name? And we're starting to see that in mass. I do think, I would say it's less, I would shift that question from what is the role of the VCs, but also say what's the role of the LPs, right? Because, VCs are working on behalf of LPs to put their dollars to work and to make sure they have a return on their investment. And so if LPs are saying to the VCs, we want to make sure that as you're deploying some of our dollars, here's what we want you here's how we want you to shift your investment thesis, or here's how we want you to push your portfolio companies. Here's what we want you to do around equity. Can you allot a certain percentage to diverse team founders or to people that are working on issues around sustainability? I think there's a greater role that the LP constituent can play in that area.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So next question. Thank you, Jody. So next question from Azadeh Hosseini. What can we do on a personal level or as an employee to ensure that companies create and maintain a diverse and equitable environment in the long run?
Yeah, so I would say, and this is the approach that we take at the NUVCA with all of our companies through Hack Diversity, is that the approach needs to start at the top. You need to have buy-in at the executive level, and it really needs to start at the CEO. Then it's, it starts at the CEO level where you have that executive sponsor, and then quickly should shift over to whoever heads up talent and operations, and making sure that when they're thinking about diversity, it's not just about we want to get more people into the company that look diverse. That's only one small aspect of it. The other piece is, how are we making sure that we are setting up an internal infrastructure where everyone, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, your religion, how you identify, where you come into this organization and you feel like you belong. And belonging is that feeling of, I feel like I have a stake in this company, regardless of my role. And I also feel like my role is so important to the success of the organization. And that feeling of belonging needs to start and be governed by the top. You need to be super aggressive in looking at the culture to make sure the culture is such that the employees who are currently there want to tell everybody about the organization and why they should come work there, as you're also thinking about what do we do to put the right infrastructure in place to attract more people that are not white men.
Excellent, excellent. And reminds me of an experience I had in the Silicon Valley, which, really inspired me. So, for the buy-in on the top level, one thing is also to understand is, a diverse team will be way more creative than,
Exactly right.
Because when you have a
exactly right.
It's going to be harder to manage. Everyone's going to have different background, different, culture, different ideas. But when you mix this, environment together, you basically get global solution, global product.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And in Silicon Valley, I think that's one of the strengths. Boston is seeing it as well, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't be promoting more than this. We believe in this. It's good for society. It's good for business, and it's good for all. So, congrats.
Yeah, and I would say, to your point, the first thought about this is the first priority should be, it's good for business. Like, yes, it's good for society, but it is good for business. It's good for innovation. It's good for returns. And that is how we should be framing this and thinking about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then one question here about, do you see, so we believe, and you can say, no, that's not the case. We believe it's the golden age of green. It could be error. Do you see some signs in the VC community you're managing, that this could be real and true?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there is what we're seeing now, across the VC landscape is that green investing, clean energy investing is no longer happening with a few funds that are just dedicated to that investment thesis. But you're now seeing, larger venture funds that are that are investing in biotech, that are investing in tech, that are also finding these companies that have a double bottom line kind of angle, that have an approach to clean energy, and are seeing success where that's concerned. So there's definitely more of an eye towards it, and it's just a more of an awareness of how that is going to have an impact on our globe.
Excellent, excellent. So any last questions from anyone? Otherwise, we can conclude. Jody, thank you so much for this talk, and we'll be replaying it on social media. And thank you so much for being here. Thank
you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. So now we're gonna start the next talk. So thank you, Jody. Thank you, Ari Glantz, also from New England Venture Capital, for helping organize this. Thank you, Mickey,